Good morning. In 2013, my fiance Kara and I were living in downtown Chicago on the 37th story of a high-rise. It was a great place to live. We had fantastic views of the city. We could walk to work. But there was one big problem with living in this type of building, and I'll get into that in just a moment. So Kara decided she wanted to buy a new pair of shoes. And since when you live in this type of high-rise, there aren't shoe stores nearby, you need to shop online. So Kara went to a company called Zappos. And for those who don't know, Zappos is an online shoe retailer that specializes in free shipping and returns. So what a lot of people like to do when they shop with Zappos is to buy several pairs of shoes in different sizes and styles, send them to their homes, try everything on, and send back what you don't want to keep. So Kara decided to do just that. She bought 6 pairs of shoes, sent them to the apartment, tried them all on, and decided to keep one of the pairs. So she took the other 5 boxes, stacked them up by the front door to take out on her errands that weekend. The problem was, I didn't know she did this. So when I came home from work that day and saw 5 boxes of shoes stacked up by the door, naturally I recycled them. And herein lies the problem with living in a building this large. The garbage chute, because of the building's size, ends in a locked room. So by the time I was able to get in touch with someone who worked at the building, the collection company had come along and the shoes were gone. I really didn't know what to do, so I told Kara that I accidentally recycled these. And she called Zappos, figured it was worth a shot. So when calling into Zappos and explaining that while trying to be helpful, her fiance accidentally recycled $500 worth of shoes, it was surprising to her and to me that they said, "Don't worry about it, no problem. We will provide you with a full $500 refund." We were totally blown away, and this is a true story, by the way. Needless to say, by being this blown away, we've been loyal customers ever since, and have since shared the story with friends, family, colleagues, and now you all. So, how can a company forgive this? They must be losing money, right? Refunding $500 customer mistakes? How can an online shoe company like Zappos make refunding these types of things a part of their business model? When will they ever receive return on investment? I have a tough enough time getting my multi-billion-dollar cable company to refund issues on my bill that shouldn't even be there in the first place. So it's amazing that an online shoe store doesn't even hesitate to provide a $500 refund for something that was totally my fault. As you may imagine, this all comes down to the customer experience. Zappos knows if I have a positive experience along my journey with them, I will be much more likely to return business, will be very likely to recommend them to friends, family, and colleagues. And just to take a step back, a customer journey is essentially just a timeline that examines all of the points of interaction where customers interact with your organization. This could be something as simple as opening an email to something more complex like re-signing a contract. According to Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappos, they are not a shoe company and they're not an online retailer. In his judgment, they are a customer experience company. He believes in it that much, and to him, everything else comes secondary. And in fact, 80% of their business comes from repeat buyers. And if you take a look at what they're doing, they're spending their marketing dollars in very interesting ways. So what they've done is they invest these marketing dollars into the types of activities exhibited by my story. So they didn't have a traditional P&L shipping refund expense on their balance sheet for my error. This was marketing dollars. So I'm a marketing guy. I love to talk about marketing, and I'll spare you guys the minutia of it. But just to go in a little bit, even if you take into consideration some of the basics like customer acquisition costs, upfront marketing, and even a retention program of some sort, they are still spending a ton of money to retain me as a shoe customer. And if that wasn't enough, I'll put a cherry on top. If you call into Zappos right now and order something that is out of stock, not only will the customer service representative get online to competitors' websites and help you find the item, but they will also go as far as actually help you place that order. Essentially, they are selling you a great customer experience. And even though they've given away that sale and that pair of shoes that maybe you could have bought from them, they provided you with a great customer experience. So to them, mission accomplished. Overall, Zappos knows that by placing a strong focus on the customer experience, their customers are far more likely to return and will recommend them out with some positive sentiment. But we're just talking about a great customer service story, right? My company, my organization can't simply just refund all mistakes, especially expensive ones, with the hopes that these customers stick around long enough to receive a return on the investment, right? Well, you can, but you can't. So building an exceptional customer experience requires a split approach, and it requires both proactive and reactive methodologies. I like to think of reactive methodologies in this realm as things like customer support and customer service. And before we get too far down that road, I just want to be very clear. Customer support and customer service are crucial pillars of any healthy organization. They should not be negated, and at GPS Insight, we're extraordinarily proud of our award-winning customer service team. But let's break down what customer service is and really think about it. We're being reactive, right? A customer comes to us with an issue, and we throw out a life buoy. There's an issue, they're drowning, so we send them out something to help. But what if we brought forward a proactive approach as well? What if we gave them life jackets ahead of time? We found out that there's this drowning issue, so we give them something before anything becomes a problem to help remediate it. Zappos is a perfect example of a company these days that gives out life jackets. Essentially what they've done is they've examined the customer journey and found ways to bring forward proactive solutions. And this is precisely how they do this, if you're asking how does Zappos do it. By examining this journey very, very closely and determining the points along it where customers struggle, they bring forward proactive solutions to prevent the problems from even becoming problems in the first place. They provide random shipping upgrades, they have award-winning customer support, the emails are carefully crafted to ensure that their customers are guided to the right part of information or shopping habits that they need at that part of their journey. And in addition, they take in a ton of customer data to really hone in on these additional points in the journey where they can either improve things for their customers or make them even better where they're already succeeding. Overall, they are focused, laser focused, on creating the best possible experience for their customers from beginning to end. And this is a recipe that's proven not only successful for them, but for other future-thinking companies who are trailblazing their space. Companies like these have also embraced frameworks whereby customer experience is the focus and driver of all business decisions. And in fact, one of the most influential strategists and marketers, Steve Jobs, said, "You've got to start with the customer experience and work back towards the technology. You cannot do this inversely." I think he totally hit the nail on the head with this, and I believe this is something evidenced by nearly everything Apple does. But this isn't something that just works for large organizations or billion-dollar technology companies. This is something that can help field service organizations stand out in their spaces as well, as those spaces have gotten very crowded. In fact, research shows that field service companies have recently begun to embrace this strategy. And let's think about the field service space right now. It's gotten very competitive, and I think almost every field service truck I've seen on the road these days says customer service is our key, or customer service is our differentiator. But there's a couple of problems with this, right? If everybody says the same thing and that message gets diluted, does it mean anything anymore? And two, this is also just a reactive methodology, as we discussed, right? Customer service is great, but it's only reactive. So let's go back and think about the Zappos story. I had a great customer service interaction, right? And great customer service is just that. It's great. But alone, it won't necessarily differentiate your business or organization. And this is something that I believe these companies have a very deep understanding of. And in the way they approached this problem and this customer experience scenario is by examining these journeys and looking at the touch points, they've brought forward innovative and bold solutions to proactively get ahead of issues customers may face. And let's think about it. What did getting a computer fixed look like, or buying one for that matter, before Apple came out with the Apple Store and the Genius Bar? Consider for a moment what buying things online looked like before Amazon came out with Prime. And recall your last customer service call before Zappos reset the bar, or unfortunately continues to look like for many organizations. This is a mentality we wholeheartedly embrace at GPS Insight. We focus in on our customers' experience at all touch points along the journey to ensure that functionality, operations, and communications are simply as perfect as they can be. And through this process, we're able to continually improve our business so that we can continue to provide you with the best possible experience. And we use this to help guide operational changes, refine communication strategies, and ensure that your feedback and your voices are at our product development table. So in order to accomplish this, we started by mapping your journeys with us. And this is it, our customer journey map. This is the result of very careful feedback solicitation and analysis, laying out all of the major points in your journey with GPS Insight. And at all of these points, positive or negative sentiment can be formed. All of the landmarks in this journey have additional external-facing feedback mechanisms that you may have seen in our products, apps, and via email, where we're continually surveying all of our customers. So I'm sure you're wondering, how do we gather all of this data? Well, from a qualitative perspective, we have a program called the Customer Experience Roadshow. This is one I'm really jazzed about, and essentially it's a program where we go around the country hitting a new city each quarter, and we go through the journey map in person with our customers. We put it on the wall and we go through every touch point along the journey and put sticky notes on everything and dive extraordinarily deeply into the interactions, from signing the initial contract, getting your devices installed, training users, getting up and running, even going all the way out to renewal, so that we can really understand your experience with us. But we don't just like to work, we also like to have fun. Work hard, play hard, right? So we spend the second half of the day doing something really cool together. We've gone ATVing in Arizona, we've pigged out at the famous Bar Sienna in Chicago, among some other adventures we've had. And this is a project, as I mentioned, that's continually traveling around the country. Since we kicked this off earlier this year, we've had the pleasure of hearing from almost 100 participants, and the feedback has been simply astounding. And since then, we've been able to make some very meaningful changes and impacts to your experience from what we've learned. If you haven't attended one yet, please keep your eyes peeled for some marketing, because we'll continually traverse the country, and we'd love to hear from all of you. So we've talked about qualitative, let's talk about quantitative. From this perspective, we're continually soliciting your feedback through some of these surveys I mentioned, where we're honing in on some of the deeper avenues of your customer journey. And as I mentioned, this takes the shape in the form of some of these surveys. There's Net Promoter Score surveys, which you've likely seen, which simply asks 0 through 10, how likely would you be to recommend this organization? We also have additional surveys that go out that get a little more deeply and robustly into some of the information on what guides the experience. Since we've started bringing all this data together, we've gathered some really amazing feedback and have identified training as a challenge. And since then, we've added some programs and resources in this area. We've added a lot of fantastic content to our amazing help center. We've also added some of this content in ways to help you take your expertise with GPS Insight to the next level, or even just assist you bringing a new user at your organization up to speed. These are just a few of many programs and initiatives that we've brought forward that are a direct result of your feedback that we're continually analyzing for adjustments and improvements. So I'm sure you're all wondering, how can you do this? Well, good news. You don't need to be an Amazon or an Apple or a part of a multi-billion-dollar organization. Anyone can do it, and there's good reason to invest in your customers. I'm sure you've all heard the quote before, and depending on your source, it changes, but it costs anywhere from 6 to 10 times the investment to bring on a net new customer versus maintaining an existing one. So even if you take this into consideration conservatively, it really makes all the sense in the world to invest in your customers. And this is how I'd like to challenge you all today to think about this. Think about customer experience programs as an investment, not a sunk cost. And I can assure you that all the research out there validates that there is a strong return on this investment. And the other good news, it's not hard to start or bolster your existing customer experience programming, no matter where your current priorities lie. So to begin, just work towards understanding your customer's journey. Just lay it all out. You'll notice there's likely dozens or even hundreds of touch points where customers interact with your organization. And again, this could be anything from simply opening an email to re-signing a complicated contract. Laying out this journey can be done in many different ways, but what we've found works very well is just by starting with some deep conversations with your customers. This could take the shape in the form of journey mapping, like what we've done. This could also be much more simple and scalable. You could just have some deep conversations with your customers on the phone. Just call them up and really ask and seek to understand what their experience is like with your organization. But don't worry about getting it wrong, because there's really no wrong way to do this. It's an iterative process, so as long as you start somewhere, you're in great shape. From there, you'll want to solicit additional customer feedback. Really dive in and seek to understand where you can make improvements, because frankly, there's always room to improve our organizations, right? Set up a program where you're able to open in a stream of data and let additional voices of your customers flow in. This will help you iterate on this initial journey map that you've laid out and this initial view of your customer's experience with your organization. It's important to set this up with the regular cadence for two reasons. One, your customers' interactions and experience with your organization will not only evolve over time, but your understanding of their experience will also evolve over time. So again, it's not wrong, and there's no wrong way to start it. Just find the way to start it and then continually work to let this data come in to improve it. So we've laid this journey map out. We have continual information coming in from our customers. So we need to scale it, right? And to do that, let's talk about data, everyone's favorite topic. In order to have a strong view of your customers and a good customer experience program, you want to have a subset, or a set rather, of quantitative and qualitative data. Since all of the data we've discussed so far with the surveys and phone calls and journey mapping activities are qualitative, let's talk about quantitative. And the way I like to think about the difference between the two is if quantitative draws or paints the lines on a piece of art, qualitative colors them in. And it helps you understand the nitty-gritty details, the driving forces and emotions of what goes into your customers' views and thoughts about your organization. This is also crucial because it can help us sort of guide the ship and understand that if we hear something on the qualitative side, not only can we validate it quantitatively, but we can also ensure that it's something that addresses the broader needs of the most customers that we can at a time. We know that most organizations, if not all, everyone has a challenging situation with resources, and we want to ensure that we're being as forward-thinking with it as possible, right? And that we're using resources most efficiently. So what this allows you to do is ensure that when you take something from the qualitative side, you're able to validate that this is something that impacts a large group of my customers. So this tells me where I can use my resources most appropriately. The easiest way to get started with something like this is just with some simple surveys. You could send NPS or Net Promoter Score surveys out, or they could just be something you build in SurveyMonkey or with some of the other free tools available today. So we have a strong stream of data flowing in, both quantitative and qualitative. With this, try to thematically lay out and understand these themes that you've identified from this research that you've gathered from your customers. By doing this, this will help you answer questions like, what could cause a non-renewal situation? What could cause a customer to fire my organization? Or what could leave a customer feeling so sour that they take to social media screaming from the mountaintops how dissatisfied they are? Perhaps the survey data you've gathered confirms something you've suspected for a long time, like scores are particularly low with that one driver, that one employee. The point is that understanding specific customer feedback in context helps us focus our resources as efficiently as possible, which allows us to send this downstream to provide the most meaningful changes for our customers. Think outside the box and really use all of the available data, because data that can help us improve our customers' experience and frankly even just our organizations can come from anywhere. Obviously customer data is important, as we've discussed, but there's also some other sources that people don't typically consider for this. Things like financial data, telematics data, or even, there's just a million ways to pull this in. So thinking back, while this customer data helps us understand where to place the focus, these other sources can also bring in new insight or even help validate what we've learned on the customer side. Recently, we had a customer who did just that. So this customer is an organization that delivers supplies to patients after being discharged from the hospital. And you can imagine in this scenario that time is very much of the essence. So in order to make sure that time is of the essence for their customers, they commit to a 4-hour delivery window. However, after they started taking in some customer data, they realized they were only hitting this delivery window about 80% of the time, which was below their standards and not ideal for them. So by taking a look into some of these other data sources, and for them that was financial data and telematics data, not only were they able to validate that this 80% scenario was occurring, but they also identified some other operational inefficiencies. So by bolstering this and by bringing forward this data together, not only were they able to bring up their success rate of this 4-hour delivery window from 80 to 99%, but they also were able to save nearly 11,000 hours of wasted productivity. And this netted them $200,000 in annual savings. Wow. Making an impact on customers is something we very much embrace at GPS Insight and share with our customers. And later today, we're going to take a look at our Impact Award-winning customer who was able to take data from both GPS Insight and their customers to create a truly exceptional customer experience. So, take action. Find ways to take what you've learned from your customer data and other sources to bring forth positive change at your organization. And finally, rinse and repeat. Companies like Amazon, Zappos, they didn't get it right the first time, and perhaps neither will you, but that's okay. The key here is to just stay persistent. If you maintain a customer-focused mentality, the rest will fall into place. Thank you.